Hi, so my name is Mike Jacklin. I'm the Director of External Relations at ETA World. And ETA World is a public transit data management company. And we deliver solutions through innovative products and also through professional services. Our clients include some of the leading journey planners around the world, and we also work closely with local, regional and national public transport authorities. And in terms of our mission, well, we're really passionate about passenger information and getting it right consistently and reliably for passengers, and we hope that encourages modal shift, thereby also reducing pollution and congestion. I think probably I'd identify three. The first is finance. There's a lot of focus in policy circles around multimodal transportation, but that has to be implemented locally. And that involves money, and investment, certainly during these fiscally stretched times, is sometimes quite challenging. The second, I think, is hearts and minds. Logically, we know that we should leave our cars behind and use public transportation, but it's also about winning over the hearts. And I think, again, the industry probably needs to more to try to win over the hearts and minds of travellers, to encourage the use of public transport. And then the third one, I think, is probably change. I was talking to a transit manager at a Canadian transit agency last week, and he said in his long career in public transit, this is the most challenging and the most exciting times he's ever known. And that's really around the amount of change that's coming down the track, from the rollout of EV vehicles to the use of data and AI, through to changes in consumer and traveller behaviour. So I think international data standards are absolutely essential. We view transit networks both as physical networks and also as digital networks. And data is the lifeblood of those digital networks. And in order for data to flow seamlessly across this complex ecosystem with lots of different suppliers and data systems involved, it's absolutely essential that international data standards enable that seamless flow of data. So data, public transit data, expresses really complex sort of life situations for passengers, and therefore it's really essential that the data is able to accurately represent the real life experience of the passenger on the ground. And that involves the data being able to pass through lots of different systems in this very broad ecosystem, to enable machine-to-machine interfaces to be able to allow that data to flow through seamlessly. And so I think in order to broaden out that ecosystem and enable more different developers and different software systems to innovate and provide new services for passengers, it's really important that data flows through in those ways. So one of the key outputs of data, transit data, is passenger information. And I think what's important is to be able to get that passenger information out to as wide a group of travellers as possible. And that involves making that data easy for the developer community to access. I think GBFS and GTFS standards have done a very good job of enabling non-data specialist developers to really be able to understand and use public transit data relatively easily, and then to be able to bring them into their own apps and new services. And then if you add in the open data movement, where you're making the data openly available as well as easy to use, almost democratizing the availability of transit data to be used for consumer apps, such as Google and Apple Maps are a great example, Citymapper another example, where really the ease of use of that data and the openly available nature of the data has enabled these big consumer apps to bring transit services into their solutions. I think mobility data play an absolutely vital role in the ecosystem. ETA World is actually a founder member of MobilityData, so we've seen their role and the passion of the team grow and evolve over time. And I've almost separated out into three things that they do. I think the first is obviously the management and governance of the GTFS and GBFS specs, and that's a really critical piece of enabling those data standards to evolve seamlessly and to be able to bring in the insights and and needs and interests of the user communities. The second is, I think they do a very good job of advocacy, and they're very good, I think, at bringing together different parts of the data community. We have not only the GTFS and GBFS standards, we also have the European NeTEx and SIRI standards. And a lot of the developer communities, we work across both those different standards. And I think MobilityData is doing a very good job of bringing together those standards and trying to bring collaboration across the standards to the benefit of all the products and services that we can deliver to passengers. So again, I think we work very closely with MobilityData on extending the GTFS and GBFS standards. We've been involved with FAIRS V2 and GTFS pathways with them. But we also really enjoy the fact that there's such a vibrant community around MobilityData now. It spans both the North American data community, the European data community. And I think this event in Paris and the people who are here from both sides of the pond really demonstrates how it's a very thriving and interesting group. And enables everyone in the industry to get together physically to share their stories and to try to progress the data standards on behalf of passengers and the wider transit communities. So if I can cheat and have two, the first is walking. We live at quite fast-paced lives, and a lot of that's digitally based, and so I love the act of walking because it slows everything down and it puts you in touch with the sights and the sounds and the smells of the things going on around you. The second is actually riding on the top deck of a double-decker bus. I love it because it partly takes back to childhood memories and the excitement of scrambling up the stairs and sitting and looking out from the top deck. But also you do get a very different perspective of a cityscape when you're up there. You're above the bars, above the shops. You really get a chance to appreciate the architecture and the wider kind of urban environment. So I do really enjoy, still, as an adult, sort of travelling by bus on the top deck.